And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about a couple of things regarding the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins as well as Raheem Morris and the Falcons. Their thoughts on Kyle Pitts, their tight end, having a breakout season. Some optimism regarding him. And yeah, we've reached the halfway point of the show now because now we have 5 segments. So I know we talked about the Falcons a little bit to open the show, but I just wanted to talk about some things that, like I said, head coach Raheem Morris, what he had to say regarding Kirk Cousins as well as Kyle Pitts. So this is on Kirk Cousins and his progression from the torn Achilles. And this is what he had to say. He said, Kirk is every day improving. We're kind of right at the point where he's doing everything that we can do at this point in phase 2, which is nobody around him. There's no contact. He's all good with all those type of things. He's been doing all those things. He's been throwing. He's been out there pretty much a full go. Now we got him in a limited basis, obviously, because he's still in his rehab and his treatment and all those types of things. And he also said, it's not like training camp where I'm worried about people being around his feet. So seems like everything is progressing in the right direction. And he still had a couple more things to say. We'll limit what he does as far as the amount, not necessarily what he's doing. So those are all the quotes that I have from what he had to say about Kirk Cousins. And like I said, things are progressing well. He's not taking any contact or anything. And again, it's one of those injuries where, and the Jets are going to have to do this with Aaron Rodgers too, is you want to ease them back into it. And, well, I mean, you have to. And the Falcons, it's interesting, though, because, they did draft his successor already in Michael Penix Jr. So, I mean, if Kirk Cousins gets hurt, Michael Penix is going to get a shot. And for Kirk Cousins, he doesn't want that to happen. And, again, that was like one of the biggest surprises from the draft is the Falcons taking Penix, and just Cousins was blindsided by it. But again, you have the people in the camp of, hey, he's making a lot of money. It's he's got to deal with it, and he's going to. And I saw another headline that Michael Penix again talking highly of Kirk Cousins. So there's going to be a good relationship there, it seems. So, I don't think we have to worry about that, but, I think Kirk Cousins in the back of his mind is a little, ticked off about it, because it's just funny how that was the reason why he left Minnesota, is because they had the desire to take a young quarterback, and he goes to Atlanta, and that's exactly what they did with their first pick. So, but, yeah, you just got to deal with it, but Cousins is, slowly but surely getting himself back into shape. And, he's going to be ready to go by week 1. And then the Falcons will be off and running. And, I expect Kirk Cousins to put up good numbers. I think if he's healthy, the Falcons should be the favorites to win the division, in my opinion. But, you still got to be a little hesitant because he's coming off of a significant injury, and he's an older quarterback. So you do have to take that into account, but I think he's going to do well. And they got a good supporting cast around him. Is it as good as it was in Minnesota? No. It's a little bit of a downgrade, but these guys are hoping that Cousins can bring them to new heights. And I think they will. I think he will. But are the Falcons a team that I look at as a Super Bowl contender with Cousins? No, I don't. But I think they're a team that could definitely make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game. But I don't see them going any further than the second round because I just think that there's other teams that are better. But that's my opinion on that. So, yeah, that's the update on Kirk Cousins. Slowly but surely making progress, and it seems like things are going well. And, yeah, he's going to be ready to go by week 1. So the other thing he talked about as well, Raheem Morris, was Kyle Pitts. Now, Kyle Pitts, the Falcons drafted him high in his draft, and he hasn't really been the player. He hasn't really had the productivity that you wanted to. I mean, I know especially doing fantasy, people are not happy with his performance, but the talent is there. It's just he hasn't been. I think some people look at that he just wasn't used properly with Arthur Smith. I mean, you had Jonnu Smith making plays in the offense last year. It's like, where's Kyle Pitts? And Raheem Morris talked about Kyle Pitts. He said how he's very excited about being healthy, and so are we. Getting a healthy Kyle Pitts gives you a really dynamic player that we believe in a lot, hence the picking up of his option and letting him be a part of our immediate and hopefully our long-term future. He also said, if we can get this guy going, we all know what he could be. That's the job of the coach to find out what a player can be and go get the best out of him. Hopefully myself along with my staff and all of our coaches, we can go and get the best version of Kyle Pitts, because that will be really good for all of us. And the other thing too is, I mean, I know I said how he's been used, but yeah, you could look at the quarterback position. And just, it's been a revolving door. You had Matt Ryan, you had Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. Those are the quarterbacks that have been throwing to him. And, you're looking for some stability at that position. But, Kyle Pitts, actually his first season with Matt Ryan at quarterback, I mean, he only had one touchdown, but he did have over 1,000 yards receiving. He had 68 receptions, 1,026 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And then in 2022, 356 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, and then 3 touchdowns. So the touchdowns have gone up slowly but surely, but yeah, I mean, you're hoping for more, and he had 667 receiving yards in 2023 on 53 receptions. So, yeah, I mean, you're kind of hoping for, more production out of him, and I think with Kirk Cousins, you're going to get that. But he played actually in every game in 2023 and 2021, but he only played in 10 games in 2022. And we do have a comment from Mr. Eric, who I did briefly mention before, talking about Netflix, airing the WWE. The host of the Wrestling Laureate podcast. I did not pronounce that right. But yeah, he's the wrestling podcast host, and he said Kirko Chain's going to bring the Falcons to the Super Bowl. I mean, listen, that's being very optimistic, but yeah, I don't know about that. And he said, "You're the man, Kenneth." You know what, Eric? You're the man too, because Eric, listen, he shouts us all out at the end of his shows, and I appreciate that. Probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, even though I haven't met him in person. I see him over Zoom, but really nice guy. Make sure to check out the wrestling podcast. Make sure to do that. But appreciate the comments, Eric, in the chat. Yeah, so make sure to check out his shows. But yeah, always shouting us out at the end. So that's why, I'm trying to do the same thing, repay the debt, even though it's not really a debt, but whatever. I don't even know what I'm saying. But yeah, back to Kyle Pitts, he hasn't dealt with the best quarterbacks, hasn't had the best quarterback situation. When you had Marcus Mariota, who was kind of the bridge guy, then you had Desmond Ridder, and the Falcons are kind of hoping maybe he would be the guy, but it just never really panned out that way. And Taylor Heineke is kind of a backup. So now you're getting Kirk Cousins, and you see the success that Kirk Cousins has had over the years with tight ends. Like you go back to even when he played to Washington with Jordan Reed, and you had T.J. Hawkinson. They brought in from Detroit when he was with Minnesota. So yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts has had over 1,000 yards receiving, and that was back in 2021. He's hoping to have another 1,000-yard season again, and you're hoping that's with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So I think Kyle Pitts should have a big season with Kirk, and maybe you see him get close to double-digit touchdowns, maybe, because he's going to be a red zone target for Kirk. And, you hear Raheem Morris and what he's saying and, how he wants to put Kyle Pitts in the right situations and wants to bring the best out of him. Well, I think you might get the best out of Kyle Pitts. If you get Kirk Cousins back healthy, and he's the same Kirk Cousins that was putting up big numbers before he got hurt, Kyle Pitts should benefit from that. And I think, and Kirk's going to spread the ball around to his receivers, and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, they're going to make an impact on the game as well. But it's I think Kyle Pitts is going to put up numbers this year. I don't know if he's going to get 1,000 yards, but I think you're going to see him. I think he's going to have a career best in touchdowns in a single season for him. I mean, again, the bar's not really that high because the most he's had in a season is 3. But I think you'll see him get more than 3 touchdowns with Kirk Cousins at quarterback for this season. But that's my thoughts on the Falcons. Let me know what you guys think about the Falcons. Again, Eric, he said that he's going to bring the Falcons to the Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, yeah, I don't know about that. But I expect them to be in the mix for the playoffs and probably do make the playoffs. But that's my opinion. So when we come back from our third break of the show, we are going to talk about the Bears officially naming Caleb Williams the starting quarterback, which is not really that big of a surprise, but we're going to talk about it when we come back from our third break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.